Hello everybody on the other side of the camera. This is Gosia from Cosmic Agency, and I have today here for you a series of mini topics, little pieces of conversations that we had with Yaski, and there is something from the past as well. And for those of you who are new, I always say this, these mini topics is just something that didn't make it to the separate video because there is just not enough information to include this in a separate video. So I call this little mini topics. First, I'm going to have just for fun about oscillations per second, oscillation per second range of a soul of manifested matter. This is something that someone asked some time ago. So this is a fun fact from before. And now from the fresher pieces of information, I'm going to talk about the monarch that just recently passed away. And by the way, here I'll try to, maybe talk about it in a way that doesn't get me in trouble with YouTube. So let's call that person a monarch. Then we will talk about the mysterious rays, beams of light that were seen in the Eastern Europe in many places. So Yaski gives us an idea of what it could be, and this actually develops into the subject of ET people on Earth, out of Earth, but especially here talking about being on Earth and influencing the humans and merging and mixing with the humans. Now, we also ask her about, like, generally, what do you see in the world today? What's happening? And here Robert is asking also about Artemis Mission that was supposed to go to the moon, and I'm asking about Georgia explosion and what Yaski thinks will happen there, and many other little details. So let's go to it. I'm going to read some of these conversations, so it's really loyal to what was said. Oscillations. This is something that someone asked about a long time ago, pretty long time ago, a question from the viewer, and the question is, what is the range of oscillations per second range of manifested matter in what is discussed as 4th and 5th density? Can we deduce that the destructive frequencies broadcasts from moon station are exactly opposite? Or if not, what are those ranges? Can you describe those values as a range of frequency harmonics? And here Yaski is giving the answer that she actually already responded before, or someone did, and that is the following. You won't like that answer. And I've given this response before. That's highly classified. It is not good to give that. Gives the cabal information. And frequency ranges of densities are not fixed ever, because it is not a place to be measured. It is a mindset and awareness, and that is personal. It is not a place, so there is no answer. Can be said to be above 50 hertz, but that's not so either. That's only an example. Above 50 hertz atomic oscillations. I cannot give more because it truly is sensitive information. Yes, I remember that we were talking about shields or spaceships, the structure, the surface, and someone also was asking about the frequency of those, frequency of their location or something like that. It cannot be given because it reveals too much information to the cabal. Now, the question is about what is an oscillation per second range of a soul? Is it even possible to express it that way? And Yaski says, it cannot even be measured as the frequency is so high. You cannot measure eternity. You cannot measure fathomless time. You cannot measure integrity, love. A soul is ether. It is pure consciousness. It has no limits, no measurements. All that applies to the material side. But if you are referring to immersion pods, frequency management, where the frequency to equalize and to divert is the one of the body, that does have a frequency, because it is a limited frequency range a material body holds. So it is the frequency range used in the body. And that means that the body is or has a limited frequency range. And that limited range is what you would call a person, a soul. But you can only manage it as such when in reference to a body. With no body, it is free and impossible to quantify. Okay, well, just a short fun fact. Obviously, when a soul is operating through a body, then there can be a specific frequency and oscillation of the frequency measured there, and that's what will be defining a person, you, identity, that fragment of a soul that you are and identify as you yourself, a separate person from others. But when the soul is free without this body as a sort of a vehicle, then of course it is unmeasurable. All right, let's go to the next topic, and this is about the monarch passing away. So I was asking about this, and Robert was asking as well, like, do you know anything about the death of that person, and who is she? And now, also I have to use a certain code word here. Yes, he says, we only know, what do you know? Only that we strongly suspect that she has been dead for months. And they only said that she died on the 8th of September for Kabbalistic reasons and numerology and rituals. She just changed her skin. But she did not die with the human concept of death. She was never human. That is already known. She doesn't play by the same rules. And now Robert is asking, but we will all do the same, change the skin. Or are you saying that because she was a code word alligator, and so now she's on Earth with another body? Yes, because affirmative to the alligator part. Yes. That body that you could see very well, that body that you see could very well have died, and she moving on to another one. And yes, I don't know for sure, but knowing them, of course, she is on Earth. So now I'm asking this in general, how this works. Because, okay, let's now generally talk about the reptilians and how they have this ability to, what some say, shapeshift. However, Yaski has a different opinion here about this, and she will explain. I'm asking, can you explain what you said about that person not being human, please? Because I had a conversation with someone recently about that, and I didn't know how to explain that she was part of the reptilian family. So I'm asking, is it like an organic portal controlled by some reptilian soul outside, or how? Because what we see is a person, is a human biological person. And here I'm also asking this because, yes, I had a conversation with someone. Hello, if you are watching me, by the way, I don't know. Well, not conversation, but comments here and there on Facebook about that person dying. And this man was saying that, he doesn't believe that she was anything else but the human being. And, I was trying to explain, or I was thinking how to explain that she was a reptilian, but I didn't know myself in what way she was that. What, like, is it a physical person operated as an organic portal from a distance by some reptilian soul, or like her physically, that person is a reptilian, somehow changing the form and presenting itself as a human? How do they do that? Apparently they can. This is how it is. The reptile generates how it wants to be seen by people, using their mind and using technology. That is why they are said to be shapeshifters. So it's not necessarily they are shapeshifting themselves. Well, they yes and no, but using mind, they are projecting a certain image of themselves, and also using technology. They don't change themselves like an octopus can. It's rather more. It's mental with technology, based on a principle similar to the one used to pass the walls. That is, knowing how to manipulate the fact that there is no material body, that it is only a reflection of who is inside, taking into account the premise that the DNA itself is nothing more than crystallized memory of the consciousness of the person itself. So the reptilian mind generates both the material concept of the body with human appearance and the concept of the reptilian body at will. Thus, both are correct, and probably verifiably correct in the eyes of a physician. That's why when you touch her, when you take her to the doctor or him, it will be a person. One thing does not take away from the other. It is the same concept of there is no wall, so I go through there. Same concept as in there is no spoon. There is a spoon from one hand because you are touching it, and there is no spoon from the other hand. Both concepts being correct. Now, here I'm asking something because I'm thinking, well, Yasky can cross walls and all that, and them having this hold on that metaphysical concept that there is no material body and how you can project yourself from the ether and all that. I mean, how did they achieve that level of that ability, not being themselves 5D beings, so to speak? So I'm asking, how can a being that is not even of 5D level of consciousness have that capacity? I thought you can only achieve that with spiritual advancement. So here there's something interesting. And they have it, the reptilian, that spiritual advancement. Yes, just that advancement is not friendly for or from the point of view of humanity. And of course, some have it more than others. It's not as simple as explained before, that can be achieved, done with a lot of spiritual advancement only, being close to the source, and that is why the regressive races don't go through space. She says, I do not agree. It is not so simple. What is observed here is more complex. It is not so linear, the good being high frequency and the bad being low. Generally, yes, that would be observed. But good and bad, and even high or low frequencies, as mental oscillations of consciousness gravity, are also viewpoints that change with the subject experiencing or observing it. It's kind of like, the Force in Star Wars. You can use it for the bad, you can use it for the good, and the bad guys also have the power. They're just using it for the bad, seen from the other side, reasons. But the power is available to all, and you can master it in the same way. So this is what's happening here with the reptiles. So Robert is asking, so reptiles can walk through walls? Yasky says, yes, at least some of them. They are not all the same, of course, and they do not all have the same level of advancement as with any other species. Okay, so I'm here returning to the subject of the monarch. So I said, okay, so she's a reptile and she projects herself with a human body using mind control and technology? She says, yes, mostly mental, but assisted by technology. So I ask, if you touch her, she will have a human biological body, yes? Yasky responds, only from a certain point of view, because I insist that she is a reptile. The physical human in her is just a transformation that the reptile has learned to achieve. However, it is not her body that changes, but an expression from the etheric side, not a corporal morphological mutation. Interesting. Robert is asking, so is it just her and all her family, or just her? So Yasky responds, her family too, but it gets diluted as in they don't all have the same capabilities as she does. Okay, so here I'm still insisting because I'm not understanding this part. What I don't understand is, was she born with a reptilian body and then transformed into a human permanently? Or did she go back and forth? Like, did she go back to her reptilian body at night, for example, when no one can see her? And here again, I'm asking. I ask this because I had a conversation with a man who says he is a friend of the Queen's security chief. And that security officer was with her 24/7, and he has never seen her changing into anything. Now Yasky responds, first of all, what that man says may or may not be true, but I do know that it can hold, the reptile can hold the human body indefinitely from a certain point of view of observation, which translates into from a certain point of view of frequencies of observation that normal human beings use. It does not contradict what I just said. Also, there are many testimonies that they change to reptiles under certain circumstances or with certain kind of stimulus or arousal. For example, the presence of prey. I insist that the word arousal here is the correct word in this case, but not from a purely sexual point of view or concept, although it does include it. And Robert is asking, prey? What kind of prey? And Yasky says, boys and girls like me. Well, this is the topic of the monarch. What do you think about this? I know there are some discussions about this in the social media about her and who she might have been and all that. But that's Yasky here for you. That's the information from Yasky. Okay, well, let's leave this subject on the side here, and let's go to these very interesting rays that have been appearing in certain countries of Europe. I'm going to put the photos here, and people are asking, do we know what they are? And Yasky, when asked, responds, yes, we have the report. It could be blue beam or tractor beams. Simply is that tractor beams. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised to find out that actually there are a lot of extraterrestrial ships putting down their officials, their people, their step downs to do whatever mission they have to do, and then taking them out, and also taking a lot of starseeds, a lot of people from their races, from their planets. Now Yasky is saying, there's a lot of ET activity all over the Earth. Countless. They leave and or take their people. Even the Taigetans are at it. Lots of Hashmalim activity these days. Hashmalim, for those who are new, are special forces within Taigetan military ranks. So they are specially trained, usually men. There's also a synonym section, which is a feminine section of those special operations, and they go down to Earth or wherever, and they perform these special, dangerous, very often operations. So a lot of Hashmalim activity these days. They use that all the time. Those tractor beams, for whatever reason. For example, they even insert people with vehicles and all. For example, they go down for special operations, and they can even take hostages out from different situations, but they don't bring them in or take them out. They just place them in competent hands. And this is going to be a next mini topic about how the ETs are actually among us, and how they are mixing and merging and influencing, but without anybody ever knowing that this was an ET person who was involved, like in these situations. They even take hostages out, and then they put them in the right place. And now I'm asking, why do they let themselves be seen like this, those rays? I mean, why? Apart from the fact that maybe they want to be seen. Yasky says, because the technology is not perfect. And many times a gravity beam ends up ionizing the surrounding atmosphere, creating that glow that gives away the presence of a ship. That said, I can't know if that's what you see in the videos, so it's not sure. Now we have a very detailed description of a tractor beam and how it works, how it operates. It's in the earlier videos, like about 43 years ago, given by Svarów Era. So just go to our website, svarów.org, type in tractor beam in a transcript search, and those transcripts will appear. It's very, very, very interesting, and it was described in detail, the technology of those tractor beams. Now, continuing with the subject of the extraterrestrial people mixing with us here on Earth and influencing. This is what the Taygetan races always have done. This is what they have been doing always, and the Taygetans as well, influencing and working behind the scenes, not taking any credit for what they do. You know, this is just also for those people who are always saying, where are they? Why are they not helping? They are always helping. You just don't know. It might be your neighbor. It could be your car mechanic that in his other free time, outside of his supposed human life, is doing something else very important for the planet. You just don't know. And now Yasky says, the Taygetans always do that in their own way, working behind the scenes. That's what they have been doing these months too, as they have always done since forever. Influencing, talking to people, whether key people or not, as if they were other normal people. What many would say is happening anyway between people influencing each other. I insist that not all people who walk the earth, pay taxes, and are stuck in 5 p.m. traffic are human. And I am not just talking about starseeds. I am talking about full ETs. But on the other hand, that's something hard to define, where humanity ends and ET part begins. I'm asking Yasky, talking to people on Earth, you mean like you are talking to us, or in person, or how? Both technologically and in person, but passing as humans, never revealing their identity. That's the protocol here. Mostly technologically nowadays, since the level of such technology on Earth allows it. Robert is saying, so you do it with Earth technology? Yasky says, well, at least from the receiving end on Earth, it looks like that. Yes, terrestrial. And now she's quoting here, well, she is referring to a movie Contact with Jodie Foster. And there was a character there called Haddon. I don't know how to say this, Haddon or Hayden. And she's saying, do you remember Haddon, the man who, from an airplane, advised and opened the way to Holloway in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster from 1997? He is the one who gave her the key to decipher the ET message contained in the radio signal. Haddon doesn't say he was an ET. But what I mean here, she's just using him as an example, but what I mean here is that ETs pass themselves off as those kind of people with antisocial, hiding tendencies, but with great power of influence. That's why I used Haddon as an example here, because he's perfect. Haddon very well could have been an ET. Keep that in mind, how much they are involved. I always say this. ETs are there on Earth. Or, now, I'm going to have a more detailed description of how this works later in a series about ships. It's going to be another series, because I have more information about ships from the past conversations, series about ships and navigation and all that. So that's going to be described in detail later. But here she says, ETs are there, or they can operate from a ship that appears to be a plane, but is not. very often what you see in the sky and it appears as it is a plane, it is not. Also, some appear to be just airplane holograms. What's behind it? A UFO. There are actually videos out there of planes that look like holograms, like there's nothing there. Where here Yazzie is explaining that what's behind that is a UFO. I have been telling you this for a while now, that the planes above are not all human. Many are UFOs posing as planes. For example, there are reports that on a sunny morning with no clouds, within a few minutes the sky is covered with chemtrails. And there wouldn't even be time for traditional airplanes to have been able to spray all that, and without making any noise. That's because it wasn't airplanes that released these, but advanced aircraft. Human, hybrid, and non-human, not to use the word UFO. My question here, UFOs spraying chemtrails? Perhaps neutralizing the bad guys? Yes, the bad guys spray with their UFOs, and the good guys respray what the bad guys have sprayed. It's a competition, a useless war between good and evil. Not so useless, of course, but that's just her way of expressing it. And it doesn't matter if they have red and green lights and strobes, because many non-human spacecraft use them anyway. And there are traditional planes that spray chemtrails. I'm not saying that they don't. Now, Robert is here commenting, but if the chemtrails reached the ground, there is little they can do to neutralize them. Yaski, little they can do, yes. And I insist that those spider webs you see are graphene nanotubes, loaded or not with biology-altering substances. And here I'm saying, not so useless, Yaski. It's not a useless war between good and evil. And Yaski says, well, Gosha, useless in the sense that if the humans down there, the so-called broken shoes, would agree among themselves, then nothing like that would be necessary. Since I insist that everything is generated by the human psyche. And here she's saying, I don't want to use that broken shoes term anymore because it introduces the idea of being insignificant and of scarcity in their minds. By the way, to the new people, this term broken shoes was used by Svarufera first long time ago, and it's referring to the people who are walking the streets or whatever at homes feeling powerless, feeling so little, feeling so broken and poor and not being able to change anything, where in fact they are very, very powerful starseeds, very powerful people in general. So that's the idea behind the broken shoes term. Okay, so Yaski here is saying it's useless because if the humans down there would agree among themselves, it wouldn't be necessary. Well, I'm saying Yaski, but even if in 5D you can't agree among yourselves, among all these different races, how are the people here are going to achieve that with so many different races inside? It's like a reflection of what's above, and above is a reflection of what's here. And Yaski says, well, because here, she refers to her world, because here it is also the same problem or phenomenon of consciousness intertwined with the Earth. But what happens on Earth overwhelmingly depends more on humans than on galactic federations of light and love that do nothing in the end. My comment, here we are only the reflection of the above and vice versa. Yaski, yes, but that's why they try to contain the Earth in an isolated bubble. That's why they cut the internet, for example, so that in the end, the humans can solve things by themselves, while keeping in mind that this is as a step to solve their own differences of the non-human races between the non-human races. Very interesting comment at the end there. I'm going to leave you with that to ponder and contemplate and reach your own thoughts and conclusions there. Thank you very much, Yaski. By the way, on the topic of ET influencing, and also on the topic, rather on the topic of those rays, the rays who have been seen, and it's perhaps tractor beams, ET races putting down and taking out their people. There's going to be a question, there was a question by someone in the English audience about the so-called evacuations of humans to other planets. And of course, we were asked what Yaski thinks about that, and is this really something that is happening or not? I was going to include this in this mini topic, but I actually realized it's actually quite a long conversation, so I am going to include that next soon in a separate video about what Yaski says about all these evacuations. So you just have to be patient and wait for that video. I know probably you want me to say, but say, is it true? Is it not? No, just wait. Yes and no, I would say. Yes and no. Okay, now we are also asking Yaski what she thinks generally about what's going on in the world, what is happening at the exopolitical level, anything. What do you see, Yaski? So Yaski says, what I see is that on a global level, nothing as serious as it seems is happening. Yes, there will be more difficult times. For example, in terms of economy. That is undeniable. Many families are already suffering a lot from the lack of resources available before. But on a planetary level, I see more noise than terrible realities. An example of this is the alleged missile that North Korea fired over Japan recently. That was actually a non-human spacecraft, and that was and still is seen all over the world. Because those craft are already seen everywhere, as all those online videos of people catching weird things in the sky testify. However, so there are all these non-human crafts appearing in the sky, and now the cabal is using that to provoke fear. However, the cabal used and still uses those sightseeings to create more fear and accommodates everything to reinforce their agendas. North Korea does have missiles, but they are a joke compared to what other nations have. That event was not what they were told. It caused what you were told. It caused a lot of alarm, but it was just a ship passing by doing its routine, whatever it was. You know, atmospheric ionization by superheating due to proximity to magnetic engines that sometimes gets exaggerated in brightness due to humidity conditions, because the higher the concentration of atmospheric water, the more the atmosphere superheats at the plasma level, and the brighter the ships glow. Now, Robert was asking about the Artemis mission, NASA mission supposedly going to the moon, and Yaski, of course, says pure fairy tales. Everything that reaches the public about space mission is fiction. It's just to maintain the illusion that there are NASA and Apollo space programs. It's like that helicopter on Mars. With that atmosphere that they themselves claim it has, equivalent to about 90 km high, no rotor craft would go up. The irony is that Mars actually does have a much denser and more breathable atmosphere that would allow the use of helicopters and propeller-driven drones without any problem. However, my point here is that they contradict themselves as NASA because the physics is all wrong. And they would never give people shots of real drones flying over Mars, because they would see then that it is full of things that don't fit their narrative, plants and animals for starters. Okay, and what about the Georgia explosion, Georgia Stone's explosion? What do you think happened there? Yaski says, Those stones were doing a disservice to the Cabal. The awakening level of human society was using them as a proof that there is an elite that wants to control them and wants to reduce them in numbers. So they did not feel that it was a good idea to leave them there, so they had them removed, causing a theater that first it was an attack by a madman, and then they were removed with machinery. So now they no longer exist, and although the memory and the data remain, the conspiracy theorists no longer have them as a tangible reference. In addition, there remains the doubt of who ordered their removal, thus leaving open the idea that what the stones said no longer applies, and therefore people are safe. Those who had them removed were the same ones who put them there, the Illuminati, the Cabal itself, for the reasons I have just stated. I'm asking, is that for sure or speculation? Yaski, it is a very educated speculation with data that indicates that it can only have been them, knowing how they work and how the matrix and the world itself works. Of course, it was them. I say that some people say that they were removed by the white hats. Yaski says they would be doing a disservice to humanity by removing them because they destroyed the few tangible proofs that the Cabal exists and what their agendas are. Removing the stones ended up favoring the Cabal. In addition, all these Illuminati Masonic groups function very much in duality, in karma's balancing. White hats or black hats, it's all the same. Sometimes they are even the same people. Thank you very much for joining me here for this mini topic series, for this mini topic video. And let me know in the comments what you thought, what your theories are about these different things. And believe me, the future videos are going to be very interesting. I'm sure you're going to like the evacuations video, even though it's not going to be that much said there. And it's not just going to be about that specific topic, but for sure you're going to find it interesting. And then also we have to continue, or maybe before that, with the nutrition topic, because I still have those nutrition tips to share with you, everything I gathered from the past conversations. And also you're going to see how the health system and nutrition and diet and all that is treated in Taygeta versus Earth. And I also have some comments from Svaru, Verra, and from Aneka about the topic of cancer. It's not like a whole expose on the topic, everything that could be said, as I always say, but it's what I found that was expressed on that topic. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Bye bye!